What happens when the you choose just becomes an escalation point, or it actually becomes part of the power struggle, and it actually becomes something that the child can't handle and just kind of breaks down over? There are usually 3 reasons why, if you give choices and the child gets angry about it or fights you about it, or it becomes some kind of contentious scenario, there's usually 3 reasons. So the first might be that your tone of voice, your facial expression, your body language, your tone is not congruent. So you might be giving a choice with the thought that I'm trying to handle this in a kind way, but if your voice sounds angry or mean or manipulative, then it's incongruent. If a child's really upset that they can't do something, and you don't have a look of concern on your face when you give the choice, it's incongruent. So you have to be aware of yourself, because your emotions, your face, your tone of voice, your body language, everything about you is giving off a vibe to your child when you're setting limits and providing choices. So if there isn't congruence with what you're actually trying to accomplish, kids are really keen on that and they pick up on those things. So they're going to bristle when there's incongruence. So that's one potential reason. Second is if you only give choices and or reflect feelings and or use these skills in negative scenarios. So a child needs to be given opportunities to hear their feelings validated, hear choices provided, hear limits set, even in every scenario. So if it's only ever a choice when they're in trouble, if it's only ever a choice for discipline, if it's only ever a feeling acknowledged when they're doing something they shouldn't, it is anchored as a negative experience. Whereas if you say to a child, you're so excited, you're so proud, you're so happy, you are glad, you were concerned, if they hear lots of feelings all the time, then when you say, you're really angry, that's not going to make them upset. If you only give choices when they've done something they shouldn't, if you choose to do that again, you are choosing to go to bed early, it becomes anchored as I only get choices when someone's upset with me. Versus you can choose to have green beans tonight with dinner, or you can choose to have peaches with dinner. Which do you choose? All of a sudden, they're learning that choices are just choices and feelings are just feelings, and there isn't an association with something negative taking place. So that's another potential cause. Third potential cause is that they don't understand the why. So this is where the ACT process is extremely valuable. So if you are not familiar with the ACT process and that has no resonance with you whatsoever, you want to go back and listen to the limit setting pillar. Because the limit setting process is you acknowledge the child's feeling first, you communicate the neutral limit, and then you target an alternative. So an easier way to say that is you validate the feeling, you set the limit, and you offer a choice. So if a child is struggling, if there's something that needs to get done, if there's an expectation, the why is the limit setting process. You'd really like to keep playing with the bird, but it's time to pack your bag right now. Do you choose for me to hold the bird while you pack your bag, or do you choose to sit it on the counter while you pack your bag, and then you get to continue playing with it once your backpack is done? So all of a sudden now the choices wrap back to you are understanding that she wants to play with the bird and she still gets to play with the bird. We just have to do this one thing first. And so in any scenario where you're offering choices, the why is the neutral limit. The neutral limit is always the explanation for the choice. So I think those 3 things are typically where we get caught up and where we find ourselves in struggles if we've been using these skills with our kids and it hasn't been going over well. So I hope that kind of paints a picture so that you have a little bit more understanding of how a kid might receive things versus the way we intend it. And then I have a couple other final thoughts that I want to share with you all too. So if we jump right to a choice, it can be very frustrating for a child. So typically the encouragement is that we set a limit 3 times before we jump to choice giving. So her daughter's playing with the toy bird and it's time to pack the backpack. You can just say, okay, it's time to pack the backpack. And you would do that 3 times before you would jump to the choices. So if we are jumping right to choices, it doesn't give kids the opportunity to self-regulate. It doesn't give them the chance to self-control. And it doesn't necessarily give them any time to kind of mull over what you've offered as a new expectation. Kids need about 60 seconds to process anything cognitively. So if they're right in the middle of something and we say, okay, go do this, sometimes they can't immediately process that. They need upwards of 60 seconds. So to jump straight to a choice, I can see how that would be very frustrating for a child because it's kind of like you didn't even give me an opportunity to do what you asked. So that's one final thought that I think is helpful. And keep this in mind too. We are not born with choice making decisions. So when we're babies, we don't get to make any choices. When we're toddlers, we don't get to make any choices. When we're in elementary school, we get to make very few, if any, choices. Maybe in middle school, we start getting to have some choices. But the point is, it is not an innate process. It is not something we do instinctively. We have to learn it, practice it, and hone the skill. So if your children are not used to being given choices, they may not feel comfortable with it because new is scary, new is hard, new is overwhelming. So sometimes it's a patience and stick it out issue too. Just because your child doesn't like it at the beginning, and just because they're fighting you at the beginning, they may feel ill-equipped to handle the choice. But it's not that they don't want the choice, they just have never practiced making a choice. Because remember, with choices come consequences. So there's a lot of weight in a choice, and sometimes they don't feel that they can handle that well. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the practice and they shouldn't be given the opportunities to work on that and practice those skills.